Hello and welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Charlene. I am the owner of Amadore and I make videos taking you behind the scenes of trying to grow my home fragrance business. But I also do experimental videos here and there, and this is one of them. So as you can tell by the title of this video, we are going to be working with gel wax today, which I'm so excited about. Now, I've seen a couple of videos on YouTube about working with gel wax, and there is a really popular account by Illuminated by Mia, whose sole business is basically focused on gel wax melt. So I wanted to try it out for myself because one, not only does it look fun, and two, I wanted to compare it to soy wax melts. So let's get into the video. So if you're like me and you've never used gel wax before, gel wax is a translucent wax with the consistency of jelly, and it's created using a combination of mineral oil and polymer resin. This gives the wax melt a slow melt rate and a longer burn time, and the gel wax is suitable for both candles and wax melts. But do check this with your supplier before you go ahead and use. So let's take a look at the wax specification. Now, gel wax has a higher melt point than other waxes and should be melted in a pot over direct heat. Apparently it does tend to bubble whilst melting, so to avoid this, we need to make sure that we melt the wax to a temperature in excess of 110 degrees, but make sure that it doesn't exceed 125 degrees Celsius, as the wax could burn. Now with this wax, you can add some mica powder or some colouring, but we need to make sure that we don't add too much or the wax could lose its transparency. Now, gel wax holds up to a maximum of 6% fragrance oil, so it's important to make sure that we are using good quality fragrance oils. Now, when working with gel wax and wax melts, we don't really need to consider the flash point. This is more for making candles with gel wax. So with all that in mind, let's take a look at the equipment that we'll be using today. Now, I am going to be making 3 types of wax melts using the gel wax. We're going to be looking at pouring into a clamshell. We're going to be looking at pouring into a standard mould, and we're going to be pouring into a custom mould, just to see how it releases from each mould. Other equipment we're going to need is obviously the gel wax. We're going to need fragrance or essential oils. We're going to need some colouring such as mica powder or dye chips. We're going to need our moulds. We're going to need our Bain Marie. And as I've mentioned in a previous video, I like using 2 sets of Bain Marie. And I went through the information earlier. It recommended melting directly over a heat source. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to turn out. I have not worked with gel wax before. So what we'll do is we'll try it melting over Bain Marie first. And if that doesn't work, then we'll put it directly onto the stove to see if that works any better. We're also going to need our thermometer, our mixing tool, and our scales, and a heat gun just in case. Hopefully we won't need to use it. So now that we have an idea of how this gel works, let's get into making it. Welcome to my kitchen. Now, as I mentioned in my previous video, which was the making soy wax melts, I mentioned that I liked to have 2 Bain Maries, and this is so I could keep a close eye on the temperature, because temperature plays an important process in both wax melt and candle making. So the idea behind this is that the pot at the front will melt the wax and I can keep a close eye on that temperature, and the pot at the back is used to keep the second jug nice and warm. And the reason why I have 2 jugs is because I like to measure my wax once it's in liquid form, because I feel like you get more of an accurate measure, and you're also adding the fragrance oil in as a liquid, not as a solid. So the front one melts the wax, and then once it's melted, I take my jug at the back off of the heat, I pop it onto the scale, and I then measure that wax out in liquid form, and that's basically it. So I'm going to fill one cavity of this entire mould, and this entire mould. So the total weight to fill the required cavities is 210 grams. Now, as we mentioned before, the wax can only hold up to 6% fragrance oil. So with all of this weight combined, this is 210 grams. So 6% of 210 grams is 12.6 grams of fragrance oil. So I'm going to weigh out 12.6 grams of fragrance oil. It's a little bit too much. I like using these little cups because it's just quite easy to pour back into the bottle. So 210 minus the amount of fragrance oil, which was 12.6, leaves 197.4 grams of wax. So 197.4 grams of wax. Okay. So that's where we're going to melt our wax. The pot is nice and hot, and this pot at the back, which is just quite warm, is where we're just going to keep our jug nice and warm. So I've decided to go for a clear jug just so I can see what the wax looks like. Pop that in there. Now we're just going to go and get our wax and add it in. So we're aiming for about 196 or 197. Now, I was reading a little bit about gel wax on Reddit, and some people were saying that they were finding it quite hard to melt the wax, but someone mentioned that they had cut their wax into smaller cubes and therefore they had no issues with melting it. So we've got about 200 grams of wax in there. That's absolutely fine. What I'm going to do is then just tear it into smaller pieces so that it will help melt it a little bit quicker. Is that it? So that's what it looks like. Let's get it onto the heat. And guys, that's literally been on there for all of what, a minute, and it's already starting to melt, as you can see. Hope you can see. Guys, sorry about the noise. I'll do a voiceover. So we are about 20 minutes in the melting process, and basically just wanted to show you where we were at with the temperature. So as you can see, 79 degrees, but also the consistency was less solid and more of a liquid, and less sticky at this point as well. So felt it was an appropriate time to remove from the heat. How wrong was I? It's already started to congeal, which has literally been like seconds. So obviously with this wax you're going to have to work significantly quicker than the other wax, and it's really sticky. Now let's see where we are at. So still not quite there at 197. And it leaves a lot of residue behind. A lot of residue behind. So let's see where we're at now. Almost there. I should have melted a bit more. So we're about 3 grams off. Let's see if I can get that from the bottom of this jug. Okay. I'm literally going to pop this back on the heat just because I don't think I'm going to be able to add fragrance oil to how it currently is at the moment. It's very, very sticky and not like it cools a lot faster than soy wax does, that's for sure. I thought I was excited to use this, now I'm a bit like, oh my god, what's going on? Okay, let's get that off. Okay, I think that's the best I'm going to do. Are we at 197? Oh, we're at 198. Yay! Oh, 197. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to quickly pop this back in because, oh, let's do this one. I'm going to pop this back in just so it can heat up because I didn't work quick enough. So, let me write that down as part of my notes. As you can see, that's like congealed up already. Okay, we are currently at 68 degrees and I just wanted to show you the consistency at 68. So, not it's still sticking to the probe, but there's more of a liquid. But probably not at the consistency that we need to add the fragrance oil at. So, leave for a bit longer. So I've just added some boiling water from the kettle just to speed up the process. We're currently at 71 degrees Celsius, so just wanted to show you what it looked like a few degrees higher. And as you can see there, it's a lot more runnier and it's not so much sticking to the thermometer. But if we go back to what I noted earlier, was that it does begin to melt between 70 and 85 degrees Celsius, and we're currently at 70.9 degrees, and yeah, it's a lot more runnier, which is really good, but it takes quite a while for it to reach 70 degrees, so I think this one is all about patience but sort of working quickly. Now, is this the point at which we add the fragrance oil? I think I want to get a bit higher, maybe about 75, and I'll add the fragrance oil at that point. Currently the water is at 92 degrees Celsius, which is probably why they say to melt over direct heat. So I think if I'd melted directly onto the hob, it may have melted a lot quicker. Currently at 73 degrees Celsius, and because it congeals really quickly, so I think it begins to congeal at 70 degrees or below, I want to get it quite high, more towards the 80s, so that I have a bit more time to work with it. So I've put the heat up ever so slightly on the wax. And I'll come back to you when it's at 75, 78 degrees Celsius. Okay, we are currently at 77.56. It's going up. Let's see if we can get to 78. Okay, we're at 78. It's going up. At this point, I'm going to add the fragrance oil, but I'm not going to take it off the heat just because I feel like if I do, whilst I'm stirring, it's going to significantly drop in temperature. So let's see what happens when we add our 12.6 grams of fragrance oil to our 197 grams of wax. Currently we are at 79 degrees Celsius. I've just added in the fragrance oil. Now it's gone down to 78.7. No, it's gone down to 77 degrees actually. So a drop in a couple of degrees and it's already starting to congeal. Where are we at? 79 now. So it's going back up. Now we're at 78.5 degrees. So I'm just going to keep stirring that. Any last drops out of there. 78.9. Stir for 2 minutes. Okay, I've stirred for 2 minutes. We're at 79.4 degrees Celsius, and if you just have a look at the consistency, literally slides off of the thermometer. I hope you can see that. So I think so that's at 78 degrees. I think we're ready to pour. No, we're going to add some mica powder, so let's go choose a colour. Now I'm going to go for a purple. Let's keep an eye on the temp. I'm going to go for a purple, but I want to be careful because I don't want it to lose its transparency or translucency, so I'm going to go for purple. Let's open this. I'm going to sprinkle, hope you can see that, a little bit in there and give it a stir. I only put a drop in there, but as you can see, right, I'm going to move to it's not coming off the edges, so what I'm going to do is just take this out for a minute. We're at 78 degrees. And I'm just going to use this to really get the powder off the edges of the jar. Really, really sticky. We're going to now take it off the heat and we're going to go and pour. I'm going to pour, let's pour into this one. Gosh, wowzers. Okay, that last one didn't go too well, but that's all done. That's poured. And so now we're going to see how long it takes to congeal. So, see you on the other side. Gosh, I needed a cup of tea after all of that. Goodness me. That was an experience and a half. I didn't realise, I don't know, that's a tricky wax to work with. Anyway, I've written down some notes and I'm going to speak through them whilst we're waiting for the wax melts to set. But yeah, that was hard. So for this part of the video, I was going to sit down and talk to you guys about the entire process, how I felt it went, my tips and tricks for next time, but it just got far too long. So if you've got any questions, please do pop them down below and I will try to get back to you as much as possible. And let's fast forward to demolding the wax melts. So it's been about an hour, guys, and as you can see, I've started to take like some of these ones that didn't quite form a whole one. I've started to take it out of the mold, and it hasn't fully set yet, I'm guessing. It smells absolutely gorgeous. This is our cashmere plums fragrance oil, but it hasn't fully formed yet, so I don't want to go ahead and demold it whilst it still feels a bit sticky. So what I'm probably going to do is leave it for the 24 hours and then get back to you tomorrow. Hi guys, it is now the next day. It's about 7:30 in the evening. I had work earlier on, finished at around 4 o'clock. So I look and feel exhausted, but I'm so excited to demold these wax melts with you, so let's go ahead and do it. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I did go ahead and open this one, but it got stuck to the lid, which is so annoying. And so I popped it in the fridge in the hope that when I open it with you, it would have solidified a little bit more. But, you know, it's already coming away, but come on, let's have a look. So let's leave this one till last, shall we? Let's go ahead and have a look at these ones. Now, I tried to take one out, as you can see, yesterday, because I am impatient. And yeah, it looks a bit like this. Now, this is one of my old custom molds, which I no longer use because it's got the N on there. But as you can see, that's one I demolded earlier. It's very difficult to take out, and when you do take it out, it just, that's what happens. It's hard to demold it from a custom mold. Let's try another one. So maybe if we try peeling it away from the edge first to see if that makes it any easier. But it's very soft, and these were in the fridge overnight, so doesn't hold its form, it doesn't hold its shape. Right, so that one unsuccessful. Let's move on to the snap bar molds. So let's go ahead and just going to push up from the bottom to try and get it to separate away from the mold. Now that's demolded really well. How you would package this, I'm not quite sure. I guess you could cut and individually cellophane wrap these, but that's demolded really, really well. So it doesn't, again, if I was to stretch it, it doesn't really hold its form, or it doesn't go back to its original form. So I guess this is the reason why probably clamshells are the most favourite option. So let's demold the clamshell. Now, as I said before, I went ahead yesterday to try and open it, but it was stuck to the lid, and it's still stuck to the lid, as you can see. So my suggestion is, if you are going to use this, obviously don't fill it all the way up to the top. And I popped it back in the fridge, and quite easily peels away from the clamshell. Again, it's got a few bubbles in there, as you can see, but you can still see it's transparent. The colour's taken to it really well. There's a little bit of a glow in there, as you can see. It smells fantastic, so the cold throw is absolutely brilliant on these. And yeah, it just smells, it literally smells edible. But yeah, this is our cashmere plums one, as I mentioned yesterday. Cold throw is brilliant. A few bubbles, but demolded really well. And let's go ahead and pull a chunk off and see. Let's see what happens. So that came away quite easy, and the rest of it is intact. And I guess if you wanted to store the rest for when you're ready to use it, you have the option of, I guess, popping it back in. Obviously, but you know, when you are making, just make sure that it's not filled to the top, and that then should go back in quite easy. Right, let's burn this, because I've just finished making a curry, so I'm going to put it into a wax melt burner and see what happens. So I've had to go and put the wax burner in the kitchen because it's strong. It's actually really, considering that it's only got 6% fragrance oil, the cold throw is good, but the hot throw is amazing. So I want to try this with some other fragrance oils, you know, the less stronger fragrance oils. I want to give that a go and see if it has the same impact. But I thought whilst that's burning, that I'll just talk to you about how I felt about the entire thing. I didn't know what to expect. I'll be honest, I've never worked with gel wax before, and so I didn't really have any expectations, although I didn't think that it would be as hard to work with than it was. Now, from what I mentioned before, you do need to get to quite a high temperature if we're comparing it to sort of like your more standard wax melt waxes such as soy or paraffin. And when you do get it to a temperature that's more towards 80 degrees, actually it's quite easy to pour. It's quite easy to add the fragrance oil, it's quite easy to mix, and it's quite easy to pour. If you pour at a lower temperature, you don't have a lot of time to pour before it begins to solidify. But also the process afterwards, so my jugs that I use to pour the wax from, it leaves little, like, I'll show you, little bits like this. And I don't know if you can see that, but just little bits like that, which I found difficult to clean. So it took me ages to clean the jugs. And obviously, if you're cleaning like your jugs when you've used regular wax, such as soy wax, for example, you just get your heat gun, you melt it, you wipe it out, and that's done. Not with this, because the melt point is so high. Honestly, it's not easy at all. I found it quite difficult and left lots of residue. It's also quite stringy, so when you're pouring, as you're pouring, you know when you get melted cheese and it leaves that string behind, it was kind of like that. It was quite stringy, and that got in place, like it got over my phone, which is what I used to record. So yeah, just wasn't expecting that at all. Although saying that, I don't think it's bad. Actually, I think it's a wax that needs to be considered. Not a lot of people use the gel wax for wax melts from what I've seen. I have seen it in quite a few candles actually, and maybe we'll in the future do a candle to see how it works. And obviously using this fragrance oil and this wax, you can tell that it probably would work quite well, but I'd still be interested to see how it works as a candle. All in all, I'd probably give it a 6.5 out of 10. Obviously it's the first time I'm using. If you've used this wax before, please leave a comment down below to just let me know how you find the whole process. It'd be interesting to see, and if you've got any tips to share, I mean, let's all help one another out. So if you've got any tips to share, maybe it might help somebody else in the future. Do I want to work with this? I'm not quite sure. Again, I'll give it another go. We'll try it with another scent and see how it feels. But it's very like sensory. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, please like, please subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!